Thank you. Now we're back. Uh, what sort of problems we going to hit this morning? I have no idea. No idea at all. We're not getting the same response, I'm afraid. And right, there we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. We are able to see ourselves and to make sure that we're getting a decent picture. And it says, share with friends. Why not? There you go. We've been good and we've done what the computer said. Right. Okay. Here we've just reviewed the newspapers, and we were looking at what's coming up. It's 9:02. It's the 21st, Tuesday, the 21st of June. It's the year of 2022. It's nudging towards 3:24 outside. It's not that yet, but it's sunny, and it's there's no cloud. We can expect some cloud later, I think, but not at the moment. So here we are. We have no idea now. Yeah, there we go. And it's looking okay at the moment. I'm happy to say the picture on your screen is not too bad. Problem we've had. Right, where do we go from here? Right, well, first of all, let's see what perhaps we can dig up to start off the day. That needs a bit of explanation, so we won't try that. I tell you what we will do. Let's start off with the ghost train again. It's one I like, but it's very pertinent because of the train strike. So what the hell?
Many people find commuting by train tiresome. But one of the pleasures of taking a train to London is that it passes through some of the most beautiful countryside in the UK. None more so than the view of the countryside as the line approaches Clayton Tunnel, just north of Brighton. The tunnel is the longest on the line, at 1.25 miles, running under the South Downs. It's unusual because the entrance is not the usual railway brick. It is instead designed to look like the gateway to a castle. On top is a cottage built for the railway's lightkeeper in 1849. The tunnel itself was opened in 1841 and the cottage added later. Idyllic. but after 1861 it became a nightmare, or at least for those who believe in ghostly goings-on. In August of that year, a night train left Brighton, travelling north to London. Partway through the tunnel, it stopped at what it thought was a danger signal from the lightman. The engine driver was correct. The railway official had indeed given a danger signal, but the train had rushed past him before pulling up. Thinking the train had cleared the tunnel, the unfortunate lightman gave the all clear to a following train. And it slammed into the back of the first train in the dark, killing 23 and injuring 176 more. It was the worst ever accident on the line. And people walking on the downs over the underground passage have reported hearing the screams of the passengers as the trains pile into each other. The line is now also a direct line from Lewes. I've travelled through that tunnel 1,000 times. I've never heard a scream other than the screech of the wheels and brakes. But I've never walked over the downs at that point either. And I turned down an invitation to stay in the cottage overnight. In fact, I get tense each time I go into the tunnel, knowing what had happened more than 165 years ago. But my fellow passengers carry on reading their newspapers, obviously oblivious to both the tragedy and the ghosts. I could sometimes scream at them. The ghosts of Clayton Tunnel. Eerie. Bloody eerie.
Well, there we are. A reminder about how the train strike and the ghosts of Clayton Tunnel and what happened all those years ago. Train crashes have been a feature, really, of train travel. But like the airlines, you are hugely safe. No matter which way you decide to travel, because our upsets are few and far between. We don't have too many airplanes descend abruptly. We don't have any real major train upsets, crashes. Although there was one, I think, was it in Hungary the other day, that where a commuter train came off the tracks, and that shocked the hell out of them because. Yes, train travel, like every other travel, has got safer and safer and safer. But they don't know what's happened here. And one of the things, of course, is that vandals on the line are one of the great dangers that we still face. And those people who decide to vandalize, like dropping a pebble or coins onto trains, so the speed effect of the train magnifies the impact of the item, is one of those things that we really need to throw away the key if people are guilty of doing that. Excuse me for taking a little bit of my cup of coffee. It's been sitting there for a little while, and I sometimes need to not wash out my mouth, wash his mouth out, some people would say, but just to moisten it, to keep going for the couple of hours that I'm with you. I hope at some stage we'll have Fergus Wood this morning, because wine is very much at the centre of local news at the moment. And it's good news. But it does need a little bit of understanding, I think, and Fergus is the man to do it. He's our wine man. He understands the industry. And he's able to tell us step by step what this means, how we came by it, and so on. So hopefully Fergus will pop up in a little while. In the meantime, I think that 9:14, we should see if we've got another nice little thing to bring up, and let's see what we might have. We keep playing the same thing just for the moment, simply because we need to be reminded about various things. We ran for a long time a scene in Sussex, Sis, and we it was a program, and we ran it, and it was a roundup of various things of interest from Sussex, seen in Sussex. So we've got a few of the old programs here. Let's just take a quick look at one, shall we?
Well, let's have a little chunter about the financial community, shall we? We've had a go at the NHS, we've had a go at the council, and since they're getting into the ring with me on Wednesday, I better give them a chance to limber up. I fine fighting Vettel. No, I'm not, because I don't know a bit about how to fight councils, or for that matter, as a cub reporter, I had to cover the courts, of course, but not for a long time, and I've forgotten more or less what happens. Talking to some of my pals who are judges and so on and so forth, they're just so highly amused that this is happening that they can't give any sensible advice. So heaven only knows what's going to happen in Brighton on Wednesday. So we better give it a rest, I think. And let's take a pot shot at the financial community, because while I understand that in a Western economy that funding, cash, economics have to drive our lives, what I don't understand is why we pay lip service to small business, why we pay lip service to trying to get youngsters to become entrepreneurs when they leave school rather than go to university, why we're trying to start a new apprenticeship scheme for youngsters rather than sending them to university, why in fact we actually penalise students by £9,000 by sending them to university. The whole thing seems crazy to me, when in fact the big institutions don't understand that if you become an entrepreneur, if you become freelance, if you actually use your talents and your skills to make a living, is it doesn't fit into their schedule. They have these damn things called direct debits. A direct debit is all well and good, except it has a finite time that it ends. So if on the 14th of something you have a direct debit for, say, £30 or £40, and if you don't have the money in by 2:30 in that afternoon, and it comes in at 3:30, or it comes in at 4 o'clock, or at 5:30 just before the bank closes, so it's perfectly legitimately in your account on that day, it still gets dinged. Ding, 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 ding. Why are we expected to be specific about paying? Why can't we have some sort of expandable month? As long as you actually pay within the month, then it's perfectly okay. Or even make an arrangement to pay a chunk at a time rather than a certain amount on a certain day. Why, you say that all sounds terribly unreasonable. Well, yes, it does, if in fact what you do is you get a paycheck on a Friday. Or you get a paycheck at the end of the month, or you get a paycheck in the middle of the week, middle of the month, every 2 weeks, or whatever. It's perfectly reasonable, those systems, but we're trying to encourage people to become entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs don't get paid like that. They sometimes have to wait quite a long time. They don't get it at the end of every month. Sure, quite often being an entrepreneur, being freelance, means that you make more than the bloke who is actually making a salary. But you don't get it very regularly. It comes and it goes up and it goes down. And there is no understanding of that from banks. There used to be. You used to be able to go and see the bank manager, and he'd say, I'll give you a little extension of a couple of days or so. But we don't have bank managers that we can see just like that anymore. They're computers. I went to see, not I may say for anything as serious as non-payment of something, but I went to see my bank manager today, or I went into the bank to see if I could see somebody, and what was today? It was Monday, and I was able to get an appointment by Friday. Now that was partly because I'm tied up on Monday. No, I'm tied up on Tuesday. Yes, tomorrow. And I'm tied up on Wednesday, most certainly am, at the Magistrates' Court. And on Thursday, I had another appointment, which is money to me. Appointments are money. That's how I get money in, by working odd days. So it was Friday before I can see my bank manager. I mean, now, it's okay. It didn't mean much today. But if I wanted to see him about a little extension because I've got a direct debit coming in tomorrow, ooh, gosh, if you don't do it by computer, you've had it. And there are lots of people who are in the business of being freelance, in the business of being small businessmen, in the business of not getting their cash in regularly, who still have to deal with the direct debit and the online situation in terms of banking. Some of us, I shouldn't say some of us, I do my banking online, and it's a very easy way to do it until you had to snag. And then it's not easy at all, because the computer doesn't care. It sends out the letter, and it dings you, and it sends out the amount, and it's all very well, but there is no human being to say, oh no, that was a mistake. Let's reverse it. There is eventually, but I don't notice that after you've been charged 12 quid, that the bank is terribly ready, if they get it wrong, to put any sort of compensation on with a percentage, the way that they do very readily collect the 12 quid off you. Well, I'm sorry, it just isn't good enough. And if we're going to encourage good small businesses, if we're going to encourage the high street to stay the high street, if we're going to encourage entrepreneurs, if we're going to encourage apprenticeships, then what we've got to do, and if we're going to charge these extortionate fees to students, then what we've got to do is to make the system, the financial system, suit that sort of life, and not ram it on about, oh, this is the way of life, you should really do this, let's be a nation of entrepreneurs and so on. Oh, by the way, the banks aren't going to play ball. No, let's do something about it. Good rant today. Oh, I enjoyed that. Tim Flip. Bye.
Oh, there we go. That's what we were doing 2 or 3 years ago, and it's strange actually, but much of it has not changed. We're still fighting the same issues, and we're still looking at the same things that are being done and are likely to come up. So it's interesting. It is now 9:35. We would normally take a break, but I'm hoping that we're going to see. As our famous general is taking a little bit of a laugh at having to worry about one of the old steam trains, believe it or not. Well, we still haven't heard from Fergus. I hope he's all right, but he sometimes is not due until 10 o'clock. And it's only 9:35. So, where shall we go next? I think it would be rather nice if we took a look at what we've got here in many ways. Oh, hang on. Remove from studio. I hadn't thought of that. I lost myself for a moment. There we go. Okay. One of the things that, and I hope that we get focused this morning. One of the things that has blasted itself into the news is in the wine industry. If, for instance, you drink or you order champagne, then you should be given champagne. Wine is bottled, grown, and get the stamp of approval from the area of champagne, the growing area. So when you do order and something has got champagne on the bottle, you know that it is good champagne, and it's and where it's come from and what's happened to it, and so on and so forth. Well, the same thing has happened here, and in many ways, it's well earned, because we started winemaking, as far as anybody can tell, with the Romans, and their wine, which you can actually still get in a district in France called Cahors, Cahors, in Cahors, you are able to taste wine that is very similar to the wine that was used by the Romans in that period. It is rather thick and heavy wine, but nonetheless, it is very tasty, very nice, and we hope that we can see on some stage that sort of wine here, because in Cahors they're very proud of that wine. And at one time, Cahors, and I say that time because I have no idea whether it's still got the right accolade, but Cahors was in all of France known for the best wines and the best food. And I like to think that it's still there. Well, Cahors is still there. In fact, I have been back to it since. It's some 15 years ago now, but we had a meal there, and it wasn't bad. I can't say that it was the superb meal that I'd had as a youngster. But nonetheless, moving on from that, is our wines now can be designated Sussex wines. And if you ask for a Sussex wine, or you make sure that one of our wines, the drink that you're drinking, and you ask, is it really Sussex wine, should be okay. In other words, the designation should tell you that it is a wine of a certain quality, that there are certain things that happen to it to get this designation, that it is stocked and stored and comes from one of the 23 vineyards that we've got around Sussex. And some of those vineyards are very, very good. They have the right fertile soil to produce a good sparkling wine. In fact, some French producers are said, although I've never seen the copy, to have bought up land in Sussex, in East Sussex, because it is the right sort of land for them to either improve what they've got or start something new. It's not always that easy to start something new, particularly in the wine sector, because it takes you time to get to know people and things. But so Sussex wines, a very nice accolade. Right, what did I say we were going to do? Good blood if I can remember. Let's see if we can clear the ground for our colleagues who are in the industry, know what they're talking about, and give very good explanations to us on this particular program. So we hope that we'll get there. We should perhaps get him about 10 o'clock. And what is it now? It's 41. Well, not quite yet. The neat look at. Let's see whether, in fact, we can find other things that to show and to enjoy in the wine sector. One of the things that, I need to just talk over this to give you some idea why it's there. But the medieval times in Lewes were very important to the town. First of all, it became the center of democracy. But it also broke free. In doing that, it broke free from the barons and the king. We would have said nowadays, oh my goodness, is that all? But when the I can't want to say scissors, when the time comes to look at our own wine with meals, we should be able to have it designated as Sussex wine. And of course, there will be a pretty fair balance of vineyards that we've got here out of the, I think it was the 23. And I was privileged way back in 1990 to go to a number of these vineyards, and they were all trying very hard to break into the market. Anyway, back to medieval times, because in Southover Grange Park, and I'm telling a lie, it's not in Southover Grange Park, it's in Priory Park, the park around the Priory, is a young lady who has suffered already this morning by being berated for not knowing when the park was open. You don't need a park going through us. You can be all right, as it were, from wherever you are. Let's go to I Am January.
January is the name given by Mirador Television to a statue which stands in Priory Park in Lewes. The statue commemorates the Battle of Lewes in 1264. The battle is widely regarded as the beginning of English democracy. King Henry III had angered the nobles of the country by his willful spending and authoritarian behaviour. A group of barons led by Henry's brother-in-law Simon de Montfort went to war with the king, triumphed and forced the king to sign an agreement permitting a council of nobles. The treaty was said to have been signed at the spot in the priory where January now stands. A Cluniac priory from France, building was begun in 1079 by the first Lord of Lewes, William de Warenne, and his wife Gundrada. It was torn down in 1537 by Henry VIII at the dissolution of the monasteries. January was 20 years of age when he fought at the Battle of Lewes. His father was a courageous knight and was determined his son should follow in his footsteps. At the age of 4, January was sent to the Leicester Manor of de Montfort and served the family as page, squire and a knight, demonstrating exceptional ability in warfare and great courage in serving his master. Simon de Montfort died in combat the year after the Battle of Lewes, but January continued to be allied to the family, eventually gaining his own lands in Sussex. He fought valiantly in many campaigns and was a knight of great fame during the 13th century. The skirmish at the Priory left a deep mark on him, though, and he eventually retired to Lewes, where he lived out his days. He had no children, so his lands were distributed among other nobles in the 14th century, and his name was all but forgotten. That is until 1964, when January was reinstated. He now stands guarding the ruins of the Priory day in and day out. He stares fixedly ahead, neither turning to the left nor to the right. A truly disciplined medieval knight. But sometime at the turn of this century he magically came alive during the night and roamed the priory grounds and those of South Ever Manor, which was built with bricks from the priory. People who see him think he's a ghost of a monk. He fell asleep one night and before he could return to his sentry duty was seen by Edward Stick, Esquire. Edward is a walking stick owned by Mirador's executive producer. The two struck up a friendship and January regaled Stick with so many stories of medieval times in Lewes, and even before, Stick implored Mirador to give January a job. January and Stick now have their own show on Mirador and tell the story of the Lewes area from the time of the Romans to the time the priory was torn down. I am January. He is indeed January. Sir January and Edward Stick, Esquire. MiradorTelevision.com.
Well, there we are. It is worthwhile going down to see what we call January. It's a sculpture. You can see it there. It stands about 7 feet. And day in, day out, night in, night out, winter, summer, spring, the statue sits there, reminding us about the Battle of Lewes. Now, it's amazing. And we have to draw some sort of a balance between the fact that Lewes is beginning to take in a whole intake of new people who do not know much about the history of the town. And I'm happy that we are able to give them a little nudge and let them know what our town is about. And one of the things that it is about is that it is the location where the first spark of democracy, some people say English democracy, but in fact, it's the first spark of democracy where it started. And January is the signal of that. He is the medieval knight who stands 7 feet tall. And he represents the historical turn of events after Magna Carta. Magna Carta was about 40, 50 years before. Magna Carta failed, really, even though it is still quoted, and it was a brave effort on behalf of the barons. But once they actually got a sneaky bid, it seems to me that what they did was they became very secretive, and that's why they think about things rather than boasting about it. I personally would like to see them boast about it. The Battle of Lewes, a very significant battle. It also a pretty tough battle. Helen Giasson, who is our local historian, and unfortunately, she's been very ill lately. Otherwise, she would have had a regular slot on Mirador to outline some of the historical things. As it is, I'm just doing a little bit as we find somebody to look after the historical side. We need to know in our own community what has gone on, what is historical, why is it historical. But on top of that, we are able, because we have so much history, to export it, because it's had a deep impact on the rest of the world, and generally, and the Battle of Lewes particularly so. Henry III lost the Battle of Lewes. He was defeated. On the very next day, a form of parliament, not one that we would probably be willing to undertake today, but a form of parliament took place in Westminster, where it's been evermore. And that new depot organization, I suppose, or a meeting of the barons, set into motion certain things which needed sorting out. And unless you were going to have divine right of kings and divine right of the barons to just do whatever they want. So it was an important battle. It also caused, believe it or not, the walls of the town to be strengthened. As always, there are innocent victims, or sometimes not so innocent, who get hit when something happens in their midst that they are not totally involved with. And of course, the average person was not involved with the Battle of Lewes, and who should control their way of life. But they are always concerned about the wall when it keeps out. In this particular case, of course, it would be I don't know. It would have been the Saxons in charge of the house and the park and the battle. So we are seeing perhaps a resurgence of, hey, just be careful. We want to know what it is that you're going to give us. And how do we savor it? In this particular case, we got Simon de Montfort. We got the ruling barons, therefore, starting to open things up. And in many ways, what they are looking at the moment is the commemoration of the battle that really was the mother of all battles, and yet it's barely recognized. You go into school and just a pertinent teacher, but a lot of children simply do not go into don't go into the depth of the Battle of Lewes. Americans are very aware of it. It's taught in their schools to show where, in fact, democracy began. Anyway, that was January, and that's our name for him. He's become the mastiff, organization, and you'll see a lot of him on the screen. And if you've often wondered why he is why he's mentioned so much and we cosset him, is because we see the Battle of Lewes as being probably the single most important historical event that happened in the UK. And that's saying something. Okay, now the Battle of Lewes. We'll kick on from there. Shall I, if you'll give me a moment or two while I chat to you, but let me see if I can find also appropriate programs for us. Well, let's see, not much there, I'm afraid. Let's see. Let's try that. And we could take a look in here. Programs, are they there? Let me be self-indulgent. I've just said that we shouldn't, as a nation, we shouldn't be self-indulgent. I've travelled and worked abroad a great deal, and when we were in some of the places, there was also an EU mission. We used to laugh and joke. Let's not knock the EU to a great extent, but actually it is not the finest organization for developing, or whether it be democracy or how to do things, or how to even wage a war. It's done. Now, something diverted my attention. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I was always less than impressed with the EU, the UN people, and so I used to be very naughtily collect a few people around me, and whenever we saw them trying to establish a project, this is what we would do. Ready? Well, it should be coming up in a minute.
Genry is the name given by Mirador Television to a statue which stands in Priory Park in Lewes. The statue commemorates the Battle of Lewes in 1264. The battle is widely regarded as the beginning of English democracy. King Henry III had angered the nobles of the country by his willful spending and authoritarian behaviour. A group of barons led by Henry's brother-in-law Simon de Montfort went to war with the king, triumphed and forced the king to sign an agreement permitting a council of nobles. The treaty was said to have been signed at the spot in the priory where Genry now stands. At Cluniac Priory from France, building was begun in 1079 by the first Lord of Lewes, William de Warenne, and his wife Gundrada. It was torn down in 1537 by Henry VIII at the dissolution of the monasteries. Genry was 20 years of age when he fought at the Battle of Lewes. His father was a courageous knight and was determined his son should follow in his footsteps. At the age of 4, Genry was sent to the Leicester Manor of de Montfort and served the family as page, squire and a knight, demonstrating exceptional ability in warfare and great courage in serving his master. Simon de Montfort died in combat the year after the Battle of Lewes, but Genry continued to be allied to the family, eventually gaining his own lands in Sussex. He fought valiantly in many campaigns and was a knight of great fame during the 13th century. The skirmish at the Priory left a deep mark on him, though, and he eventually retired to Lewes, where he lived out his days. He had no children, so his lands were distributed among other nobles in the 14th century, and his name was all but forgotten. That is until 1964, when Genry was reinstated. He now stands guarding the ruins of the Priory, day in and day out. He stares fixedly ahead, neither turning to the left nor to the right. A truly disciplined medieval knight. But sometime at the turn of this century he magically came alive during the night and roamed the Priory grounds and those of Southover Manor, which was built with bricks from the Priory. People who see him think he's a ghost of a monk. He fell asleep one night, and before he could return to his sentry duty, was seen by Edward Stick, Esquire. Edward is a walking stick owned by Mirador's executive producer. The two struck up a friendship, and Genry regaled Stick with so many stories of medieval times in Lewes, and even before, Stick implored Mirador to give Genry a job. Genry and Stick now have their own show on Mirador and tell the story of the Lewes area from the time of the Romans to the time the Priory was torn down. I am Genry. He is indeed Genry. Sir Genry and Edward Stick, Esquire. MiradorTelevision.com.
Well, there you are. That is Genry. And it is now 1 minute past 10 o'clock. And time perhaps for me to just remind you of the news this morning. And almost universally, the strike by the RTM is the headlines. But in local news, one of the things that has been played and been made a great fuss of is the designation of Sussex wine to Sussex wines. Now, I drink the damn stuff, but I'm no expert. But guess who is? Aha. Good morning, Fergus. And we call it drinking something other than wine. How are you?
How you doing? I'm very well, thank you. You?
Yes, not too bad at all. Right now, let's kick off straight away with your expertise, because a big fuss has been made, and the local paper has actually got it on its front page that Sussex Wines designation has now been given to Sussex Wines. I can make the comparison with champagne and champagne, but can you tell me what Sussex Wines means to the wine industry here? And if you're actually going to a restaurant, what does it mean there? Let's tap your expertise.
So like you mentioned, yeah, champagne has got its own classification, its own distinction, and this is something that the Sussex now has within the English market as well. It's the only wine region within the UK to have this classification, and it's just sort of a sign and a marker to the consumer that the quality. It passes certain quality standards. It's produced to a high level that the English, the UK food standards and wine industry thinks is deemed is superb enough. And so yeah, if you're going to a restaurant and say, you can order a glass of Sussex, and it has to be Sussex wine that is made within the region of Sussex. You can't just have English sparkling wine. You can now go and have Sussex sparkling wine if you like. So yeah.
Right now, if I'm in a restaurant, I may well say, "What have you got?" And they'll say, "Oh, Pinot, Chardonnay, etc., etc." Are we likely to see restaurants now saying, "Well, we do have Sussex"? I think Chardonnay is a Sussex wine, isn't it, or a grape? or do we have Pinot or whatever? I mean, is it just an industry nomination, or is it going to make a difference to the consumer?
I mean, I don't think it'll make a difference to the consumer, but it is. Yeah, I think a consumer, if they'll basically have a glass of Sussex Pinot Noir, basically, a bit like Burgundy. Yeah, Burgundy's within the region of Burgundy. Chardonnay is very prolific there, and that's what it's known for. So you just can have a glass. Well, it's Sussex basically. There's a bit of controversy though behind it, because there's nothing a bit like Burgundy we take for instance, or Champagne we take for instance. There's a clear, distinct taste about it that makes it's from Burgundy. That you just know it's from Champagne as well. Whereas Sussex, and we look at our county partners, Kent, there's no real difference between the tastes of what's produced in Sussex and what makes it distinct from Kent, which is why there's a bit of an uproar, basically, which I'm sure you'll dive into soon.
So all is not totally well within the wine industry in this country.
Not within the English one. No, there's a lot of county rivalry kicking off at the moment. There's a lot of vineyards over in Kent that aren't particularly happy with what's going on over there, or why Sussex has been given a status and why Kent hasn't, that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
Well, I suppose really, I know that Sussex wines or wines from Sussex vineyard, is it Ridgeview, is used fairly extensively by the palace. The Queen uses it to in entertaining foreign dignitaries. So I suppose it's got the edge over anywhere else because of Her Majesty rather liking it.
Yeah, there's that one. There's also Gusbourne, I think, supplied. I did the were the main wine supplier for the Platinum Jubilee and stuff like that. So, but there's lots of them. Like Timber went through a phase of being the popular one. So yeah, you never know. Right. There could be money involved and all that sort of stuff. So really, you don't really know what goes on behind the scenes.
Now, I know that you keep your eye on September time because you import wines on behalf of your clients who like what you have to offer, and a very fine range it is too. But in keeping an eye on what's happening later on in the year, what do you think is you're going to be importing, and what do you think you're going to be recommending?
Well, September time, it's sort of that transition over from summer into autumn, and so we'll be looking at sort of getting more into the medium-bodied reds, probably introducing a bit more sort of warm weather reds as well. That will just keep you going on, say, your Sunday evenings, but then also we'll probably drop a number of the white wines that are sort of a little bit lighter, a bit more summery and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, there's plenty to play for, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So you actually your product changes along with our modern seasons here.
Yeah, I'd say it's very seasonal. Yeah, otherwise you're going to have people aren't going to buy. Well, yeah, but like for instance, rosé it's very seasonal. You're not going to have loads amount of stock of rosé during winter, and so you just run supply, and then we will only have one, maybe at a push, two different rosé options that people could buy, just because it's not. Yeah, people just aren't consuming it as much, and I don't know why. I think you can drink rosé all year round, but it's clearly a lot of people like it as a summer wine. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just let me take you up on that, because perhaps I'm going back a bit because I'm as ancient as I am, but I can remember that as a young man, when I was first learning about wines, is quite fastidious. Is that it was very, very carefully chosen that you have this red with this meat, you have this white with this fish, and so on and so forth, and never the twain should meet. And then, horror upon horror, somebody actually said it doesn't matter. You can have red with fish, and you can have white with meat. Have those sort of designations disappeared, or are they back, or where do we stand with wines for food?
Well, I think there's been a lot more understanding and a lot more research and investment into sort of food pairings, especially with a lot of Michelin star restaurants offering that as sort of an option with the meal. You can have a wine flight with your food, basically. So I think a lot more has gone into how we as human beings sense and taste food and wine and its interaction. So, and I think probably the past adage of, say, heavy body reds with steaks and white wines with fish, those sort of underlying principles still apply because they are right. But I think there's more of a scope now there's a lot of wines that have different flavor profiles and other things like that, and are able to cut through the fat. And it's all about understanding the fat, the salt, the heat of the dish, how much sugar is in there, the umami as well. And so if you can get the right wine, for instance, like if you were to go down the fish route, you could easily have, say, a light bodied red which has a marked acidity that sort of cuts through the fish and the oiliness of the fish, and that will go down nicely. So you could have a very light bodied red, but also a white wine as well. That would fit nicely. Something maybe a little bit oily just to match it, like an Alsace or a Chardonnay, for instance. That would go down nicely. So yeah, I don't think people are a bit more open-minded, and at the end of the day, everybody's tastes are different as well. So people's perceptions and how they interact with one another are all a little bit different. So it's about finding what works for you individually, and then you go from there, basically.
Now, you mentioned rosé, and I'm going to be naughty now because I always see rosé as neither here nor there, really. A bit like liberal politics here. It doesn't know which foot in which camp it should have. Is rosé really just a refreshing drink, or should it lean towards meat or fish? Or is it the answer to everybody's dream? It's the one wine you can have with everything.
It's very good at being the one wine that is very food friendly, so you can go with a lot of stuff. Especially, it depends on which handmade and stuff like that. But let's take a Provence as your classic example, like a wine for Côte de Provence. It's very light. It has a nice acidity to it. The flavors are quite aromatic. They're not in your face at all. And so this allows it to be paired with a lot of foods. Because it's based, it doesn't over the meal. It just sort of sits underneath everything. It can go nicely with a lot of food. So that's why it's such an easy drink to have. And that's why you can sort of have it all year round. It's not really invasive at all. So it's not going to put anybody down, I don't think.
I forget what exactly the name is. It's called Illegal.
Illegal.
Are you still importing that?
We are. Yeah. It's a good seller. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just give us a little background on that, so people can be reminded what this is all about. I mean, it tickles me pink. No, I shouldn't say pink. It tickles me whatever the color the illegal is. But here is somebody who decided to go against authority and the establishment to develop a wine, and you think it's a good wine.
Yeah. So it's the Illegal is it's a red wine coming from it's 100% Mourvèdre, Mourvèdre in France, or I think it's Monastrell in Spanish. But anyway, the winemaker Olivier Coste, he a bit like within France, similar to what we were talking about Sussex, so it's got its classifications. In the region that he grows this particular wine, there are only certain grapes that the governing body allow, and he believes that this particular grape, the Mourvèdre variety, which isn't allowed within the region isn't allowed to be classified under the region. He said, oh, I think this is going to be a great grape. It's got the right growing conditions for here, and so I'm going to grow it anyway. And so technically he's growing something which is illegal or doesn't go by the standards of the governing body within that region.
Right. He was well, not naughty, but he decided he had enough of being pushed around. Is that basically why this illegal came into being?
Well, yeah. So like I said, he believes that this grape, this variety can grow really well in his vineyard within this region, and the authorities aren't currently allowing it under their classification. They don't think it cuts the mustard. It hasn't got the right. It doesn't think it's going to grow very well. But Olivier believes it does, and so he's just sort of said, "Well, I'm going to grow it anyway." And technically, it would be illegal to grow it because of it not being a certified grape variety. And so he's just had to classify it as Vin de France instead. So yeah, that's why.
Right. Now you've been very good at answering my questions, and I try to indicate that I'm as naive as old hell when it comes to wine, so that I can get you to explain to people who are also naive about wine. Generally speaking, it's you're very good at responding to what I say. But is there anything in the wine industry at the moment just that you think that people should know about? And this is your opportunity to say, "Hey, pay attention to this."
I don't know. I'd say given the English wine is being a bit of a trend at the moment, if you haven't tried it, especially now that we're allowed out and COVID isn't so much of a big thing at the moment, and if you live in the Sussex area or Kent area or even down in Cornwall, and maybe even parts of Essex as well, maybe try and go visit your local vineyard or have a scope around for a local vineyard and see what all the fuss is about, really. Because it's becoming more trendy. There's a lot more investment going into the vineyards, from whether it's from individuals over here in the UK or from offshore investors from France or anything like that. So it's probably worth have a go and just see what all the fuss is about, and try and understand what they think their pipeline or their journey in the next 5 to 10 years is. Basically, I think that would be quite an interesting one.
Okay, turning to some of the things that are affecting our way of life. I actually got a thing in this morning from my energy company, and I must say, having listened to Stuart and so on about what's happening in terms of price rises, I was taken aback a bit, I must confess, by the rise in the amount of money I've got to pay. Is that going to start to reflect in the wine industry?
Yes, it will. Yeah, it would. I can see it. Yeah, trickling down, especially for next year's vintage or this year's vintage. Basically, when the crops get picked and they get bottled and everything, I can see prices going up for everybody, really. So I think that's just a fact. I think that's sort of a fact across the board, though, for anything. To be honest with you, so yeah, it's just one of those.
Yeah. So buy by the case now to see you through the winter.
I'd say so. Yeah. If you've got the resources and the funds to buy bulk now, then yeah, I would. So. All
right. Now, we always value having you on because it is mature though you sound, and mature though to some extent you look. You're only 24 years of age. And I always like your view on what's happening in the world and the country. And of course, today the newspapers are absolutely full of the fact that we've got 6 days of train strikes. It doesn't matter whether it's related to wine or not. What's your view and what's your generation's view about what's happening on the railways?
I do think it is. It is just, I think they have a case because, yeah, in real terms, people's pay pack, well, they're taking home less anyway because of inflation. If their wages don't rise, then they will take home less in real terms. So they have a case, but it's a tricky one because they're sort of, well, they. Well, I read what Boris Johnson was saying. They're sort of, by putting, obviously since lockdown, the trains have been less trains, or people have been going on the trains less, and therefore, so there's less money going to the government. And yeah, if you're sort of now going on strike, you're sort of hurting the people that sort of support you anyway. So the people that go on the trains, you're not supplying the trains for you, and therefore they'll sort of see this as maybe a marker that right, it's actually easy to work from home, or they might look for other ways of getting to work in the future, or they might not look at the trains as being more reliable. And so yeah, it can only serve to potentially help them, but it can also serve to harm them as well. So it's a tricky one because they should get paid more, and at the end of the day, they need to if they are going to survive. So it's a tough one. To be honest with you, I don't envy being Boris Johnson or Rishi Sunak or anybody just make these.
There was a rather naughty comment on front page of one of the papers this morning, and that was how can we have anybody who's as thick as Dominic Raab left in charge of the country because Boris is in for minor surgery? What's the general opinion amongst your colleagues of Dominic Raab?
I like Dominic Raab. I think he's quite a good. Yeah, I think he's of the politicians. I think he's fairly switched on, to be honest with you. I don't think when he was foreign minister, I don't think he was particularly good with the whole Afghanistan thing and getting everybody out, and him being on holiday. I don't think it didn't put him in a great light then. And the whole sort of the removal of troops was a bit. It wasn't great, and it felt like a dishonor to the Afghani people and the services that they've done and all that sort of stuff. So, but I think overall he's a fairly sharp cookie. That is actually quite decent. I think he's quite decent at his job.
Right,
I mean, there are a lot of others who are clowns, such as Grant Shapps, and
Yeah. Oh, well, that's interesting because you take the opposite view to. This was a rather left-wing paper that made this comment. So to get your view as a voter, but somebody who's switched on and pays attention to this sort of thing, is that Raab is not such a bad guy.
Yeah, I like it. I like him. I think he's got his heart in the right place for a lot of things, and so and I think he would be. He is. If Boris Johnson is to go, he would be front to take over, I'd say. So and I think he would do hopefully a good job. So, but yeah, he holds well in interviews. He's very good. And just uses common sense and speaks from the heart. Basically, he's there to help. It generally feels like whenever you read about him or read about anything to do, well, especially when he was foreign minister, but he generally wants to help people and stuff like that. So, which is good.
Now, I was, I get up very early so that I can come and get everything going in here. And I just pop on the BBC News while I'm getting changed and ready to come out. And they had, I thought, a rather interesting interview with some gentleman this morning. I couldn't tell you who he was. But the point that he was making is that the Ukraine war is suffering somewhat because we've now got ho-hum. It's the Ukraine war. We've got so used to the fact that it's there and it's happening and so on, is that the interest is waning. And that the one thing that the Ukrainians want in this is for a high state of awareness, so that our aid, both in arms and cash and so on and so forth, does not dry up. Now, how do you feel about the Ukraine war? Is it ho-hum, or are you interested in it on a day-to-day basis?
I'm still interested in it, yeah. I'd say my level, it definitely has dropped down, my level of interest over the last few weeks or so, yeah. Because it's sort of, I know it's picking back up again, but initially at the start, there was obviously that sort of, you get surprised by it all and you think Russia is just going to steamroll Ukraine and it's all going to be disaster. And then it didn't go as quickly as planned. And then it's sort of, but then there were still sort of little incidents that were knocking around Ukraine. You obviously had the refugee crisis and all, and that sort of kept our attention. But the Ukrainians have since sort of fought back. They've recaptured regions and they've sort of stunted Russia's advances, basically, and only really kept them towards the east and the south. And so, yeah, I just think it's sort of it dumbed down for a while because Russia hadn't really done much and they were going backwards, or sort of they were just reassessing their options. But I think recently, I mean, I keep on getting notifications and pings on my phone from BBC, similar to you, about the Ukraine. And it does seem like it's kicking off again, or that at least Russia are building back momentum. And I know what I think is a bit naughty anyway is the French and the German and the Italian prime ministers or presidents going over to Zelensky all together. Those countries that are sort of suffering the most from the energy crisis or any food, and sort of it seemed like they were just sort of going. They were going over to Zelensky and ganging up on him and saying, "Look, we maybe just take a deal and it'll all be over," and that sort of stuff. So that's why the image that it gave me anyway. I'm not sure whether they said that with words, but that's the sort of image where they all sort of gang up and they go, "Come on, mate, let's just take the deal and then it'll all be over." But then I think Boris Johnson was great the other day. I think it was yesterday or over at the weekend, where he went over in a secret meeting and actually said to Zelensky that, "Look, we're here for you. We'll keep fighting and we'll keep helping you." And then even yesterday in the paper, the chief of the army was saying, "Look, we need to be ready for troops to go over there, and so we'll do anything with training wise with the Ukrainian army." So, which I think is good. So, yeah, it's weird who it affects. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that we all find your views very perceptive and and very interesting, because I suppose that the viewership of our television operation is a little bit older than you. It veers between your age and mine, and to get your intelligent viewpoint as a 24-year-old. You are still 24. You haven't had a birthday snuck in, have you?
I have, yeah, in April. Yeah, I snuck in. Yeah.
Oh, you're 25 now, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, getting to be an old man. But very perceptive, and we really appreciate the fact that although you're with us to keep us straight on the narrow of the wine industry, that you give us your viewpoint on what's happening in our community, and I think that's it's very important to get that slant. So we do appreciate every time you come on. We are working hard to make sure that people will soon be able to taste wines with you, and that we can help you sell your wines, because I've always admired you. When I met you and you were waiting, on table to gather enough money to actually get your business off the ground, and it's obviously been successful. I think you're exactly the sort of bloke that this country needs. So we're delighted to have you on, and anything we can do to promote your business, we will do so. So promote it now. Tell us who you are. tell us how you get hold of wines, etc.
So my name is Fergus. I'm the founder of Camino del Vino. That is spelled CAMINODELVINO. And you can find us by simply typing that into Google or at www.caminodelvino.co.uk. And Camino del Vino stands for wine path in Spanish, and we try and look for uncommon and interesting wines to help try and evolve your palate and hopefully introduce you to something new that you've never tried before, basically. We try and have a bit of fun with it, and we rotate our range every few months or so, and our next rotation is coming in July. And so we just tried a whole bunch of new tasty wines that should be exciting for summer. So yeah, keep an eye out for those.
And I will underscore that Fergus really pays great attention to his trade. And I'm quite sure that even if you want to say to him, what should I be buying at this particular time of the year or for this particular occasion, he will be very helpful to you. So thanks, Fergus, for being with us again. We'll see you next week. And hopefully, as we're nudging along, we soon start to talk to you about perhaps expanding what we do with you, and that we can actually say that we're doing things for you. So thanks. See you next week.
Cheers, kid. Thank you. Have a lovely week.
Bye. Right, Fergus Wood, and wine expert. I seem to have lost. There we are. The ability to because I think after that we didn't take a break again. It is 10:31. Let us just clean our palate with a quick visit to the potter's wheel. The potter's wheel. Here we go. Right. The papers this morning, full of the rail strike. And there are various views taken. It's interesting to hear Fergus's view on it, take on it. But generally speaking, I think that sympathy for the railway workers is muted. I shouldn't say that it's not there. Everything is going up. I could do with an increase in my own salary if only I got a salary. And we would try very hard, I think, to see how we can make ends meet. And it is not going to be easy. So looking at various things that we need to take into account, we will take a look and see what we might have in the past taken up as a case, really. It is not easy to read what now. Now, there's something here called Octoman. I have no idea what that's about. Let's find out on a mystery tour. Well, it may have. Oh, look, here we go. Our device is having trouble sharing our video, so it says share again. So I'm going to remove it and remove from studio, and then let's try sharing again. What we were trying is something called Ottoman. That's right. I have no idea what it's about. Let's try again and just see whether we can actually get it to share and to show. I think I know what it is. Yes. Well, it's not picking it up at the moment. It's not allowing it to enter the system. So that's a great pity, but nonetheless, we'll certainly bear that in mind. That we should actually. Now, we actually at one stage used to do a travel show, and we did it in a sort of unique way because we used trains, model railways, to do it. And I've got one here that says trains with music, and I hope that might be one of them. So I'm going to try this one. Let's see how we make out with this. Well, there we are. There's a nice little model railway clip. And as I say, we did do some programs in which we looked at the various topography and transport systems and so on of various places in the world by using model railways. And some of them are very innovative. Some of them are really very, very clever. Some of them are quite stupendous. It's amazing that it demonstrates the skill of a small group of model makers, but that they all try hard to reflect, if not their own country, at least a country of choice. Right, okay. I'm trying hard not to go back to the pages of the. Now, let's look at my movie and see what this is all about. that's promoting our services, and that's not bad at all. Incidentally, one of the things that we're doing at the moment is we're saying to the traders, particularly the high street traders, look, if you want to pop in and take 15 minutes to tell us what you're all about, we're not charging you, but we are supportive of having a very strong and vibrant high street, and this might do you some good because there are a lot of people coming into Lewes who have no idea what sort of traders we've got. And we're very happy for you to come and sit here, just drop by whenever you want. We're saying that to every trader that we possibly can. Some have shrugged their shoulders, but others have got quite excited. So we can start to think in terms of how is Lewes made up. The one thing I wanted to say to you is that the reason that we have people like Suzanne Mouchot in New York and Melissa Conti in New York, and we go to other people in other parts of the world, is because we do not want to be parochial. We believe that the small town of the United Kingdom, demonstrated by Lewes, is important because what we do here should have some messages for similar towns, small towns in other parts of the world. And we believe that doing it through us is the way that can work eventually. We are in the experimental stage, yes. So you never know who you might see on Mirador in a morning. Doesn't mean to say you've got to watch us all for an hour and a half, 2 hours. On the contrary, you'd be foolish to do so. But just from time to time, if you pop in, and talking about popping in, if you want to pop in to the White Hart Hotel and just come and plonk yourself down and say, hey, at your invitation, I'm here to, maybe that we can start various thoughts about what we should have on the high street. And perhaps find out what we do have on the high street by having these general chats with the traders. So let's hope that people pick up on that. Can't force them, we don't intend to. But lead in this morning with looking at various people who help us, Suzanne and Melissa, Jane in Hastings, Fergus, who comes in as primarily a wine man, but gives us the benefit of his views. The lovely Andrew Sloan, Mr. Grizzly, the barber, who's been in New York for a week, and we'll be very interested in finding out what his impressions are of the city. So we're pretty heavily represented in New York, and we will try to get one or two more Americans in other parts of the country to spread it out a wee bit. But we try hard to not be parochial on this program. That doesn't mean to say we can't talk local. Every high street in the country, and probably in the United States and many other places where we're watched, have the same problem, that the small trader is having difficulty. And are the issues that he's facing or she's facing aside in the parts of the world that they reside, have they got similarities in the things that are worrying them? And so far, it would appear that they have. And it would seem so far, with, for instance, inflation, and cost of living rising, they there are lessons to be learned from both sides. It's, even the people who run McDonald's, they have their own problems. It's not all smooth sailing just because they're such a big giant. And so those are the sort of things that we need to find out, and indeed we will find out. And it is now at 10:45, which means that another 15 minutes we'll actually pack our bag and say good morning. But for the moment, let's see if we've got something else that might be of interest for us to take a look at. I try to I try to find stuff that's appropriate to us. And I'm just taking a look at what we've got. Now, I think one of the things I'm just going to play is, because I've been harping on about forgetting what's happening in Ukraine. Let's just it's only a couple of minutes, but nonetheless, I feel very strongly we should.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the seas? And how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? And how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Well, there we are. That's it is almost an anti-war clip, that, but it is plaintively that there should be no war. But by the same token, is that in many ways we have to be given ultimatums ourselves, amongst ourselves, is, are we going to support this war or aren't we? And I think that, as Fergus said there, that Boris Johnson has taken the stance that he wants to support. He wants to support the what should we say? Some of the standards that have been expressed globally, that we are supportive, and that we are really supportive, and we do it. We don't just pay lip service. That we have our own problems, and that we will face up to it, so that we can have a joint view and a joint approach to the invader, if you like, or invaded, and that we keep that show going. There's no difference between switching over, is there? Okay, is there one last bit that we can play? So, Well, whoops. We seem to have got stuck there. Never mind. It is now 10:50. We will shortly be at 11 o'clock, and we are going to say toodle pip there. But this week and last week, the momentum is growing with Mirador. And we would ask you to say to your pals and your friends, if you're a viewer now, to take a dip in. It doesn't take much to dip into us. And we are doing some exciting things. We're telling some exciting stories. We're looking back historically. We are trying to find new things to do. And indeed, we try very hard to make sure that the space is made available. Yesterday, we had two people on from one was from a theatre, a musical. It's a musical experience, I suppose. Coming up in May the 30th in Lewis, St. Michael's Lewis. And nobody knows much about it, and we hope it's our job to try and raise awareness. At least it started in the right place. Right, okay. We are now do you know this one? Something clip one. I'm dying to see what it is. I crave your indulgence. Ah.
To Mirador.
Give us back our town. Beer, wine.
So, thank you for joining.
Hey, Ellie, come on, give us a kiss. Come on.
Do admire the hanging gardens of Babylon on the way. They can't even cut that back properly.
Hello. At last I've caught you asleep.
You did hold up a Bible upside down, but you held it up.
Hey, Matt.
It is a massive ball of uselessness. Oh, you can't say that. Now I know, and that's a little promo that we did for our programs prior to lockdown. So it's about 2 years old, but it does tell you what we were on about and what we were trying to do. Okay, at 10:54, let's just recap that the papers this morning are dominated by the rail strike. And of course, the full effects will have been about now. We'll be getting in news reports, I suppose, about what's happening and where we stand with it. It's causing a lot of stress, a lot of difficulty, and it probably nationally is going to hit us in the solar plexus as well. But the mixed bag that we have here, we never know who's going to drop by, and sometimes people dropping by have better facilities for letting us broadcast to you. They're not hot facilities in the sense that they are exciting, but they do, and it gives us the opportunity to get out there. Right, I want one more visit to our potter's wheel, and then we will. Well, what's been happening in between the newspapers coming out? Here are some of the top stories. The train strike. Boris Johnson urges commuters to stay the course, and the French left threatens a vote of no confidence against Macron's various policies. I think is. The French left vote of no confidence against Macron's government. The move comes after the French leader lost parliamentary majority in National Assembly elections on Sunday night. And he's bound to come under fire because there is an uneasy alliance between the right with Marine Le Pen and with the left Eric Cochereau, who is the communist side, and they're all out to get Macron. So French politics is going to be very volatile for the next little while. Well, it's we still get down to some of the ordinary things. There's a newborn baby is found left amongst the waste bin. Where is that happening? It's in Grimsby. So we've got something there. Not a radio, also that's national news. Then we will certainly not see anything terribly dramatic. So it is now 10:59, and we are going to say goodbye. Thank you for being with us, and do tell your colleagues and friends about us. We don't expect them to have to log in more than just the odd day, the odd 5 minutes in a day. But we are here for this 3 hours, and it does give you an opportunity to natter and really find out what various people are thinking about going. Let's have a little go at the energy people.
Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough Well done, chaps.
That is my final word for the morning. Till tomorrow, when tomorrow is when Max Hurd and Stuart Dolby take on the task of hosting this morning programs. They major on energy, but they also look at a good many other things. And I'm sure that you'll give them your support. I shall be lurking in the background, but generally speaking, trying to keep my mouth shut. So, till Thursday, then, when I am back in full rage, if you like, whatever happened is, I say to you, toodly toodly pip, goodbye, and do join us again.